There we go.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to our second inaugural book discussion. We are here today to discuss a very a book. We're here to discuss a book. It's titled "The Mutant Message Down Under" by Marlo Morgan, and I have with me today Guy and Baldridge. And I just want to say before we get started, thank you so much for being here. I know how difficult it is to find random people on the internet and dedicate ourselves to reading a book and having a time together and discussing it. So I appreciate you guys for being here today in order to do this. However, before we get started, we have a Shakespeare Redemption. Sonnet 69 by Baldridge.
1 second.
So let us go ahead and get this redemption out of the way. Those parts of thee that the world's eye doth view want nothing that the thought of hearts can mend. All tongues, the voice of souls, give thee that due, uttering bare truth, even so as foes commend. Thy outward thus with outward praise is crowned, but those same tongues that give thee so thine own, in other accents do this praise confound, by seeing farther than the eye hath shown. They look into the beauty of thy mind, and that and guess they measure by thy deeds. Then churls their thoughts, although their eyes were kind. To thy fair flower add the rank smell of weeds. But why thy odor matcheth not thy show? This soil is this, that thou dost common grow. Thank you so much for that redemption, Baldridge. I appreciate it. Okay. So, okay. Yeah, you've never heard that before, have you, Baldridge? How many times have you redeemed that now?
Like 100?
Yeah, something like that. Something like that. Okay. Okay, let me get you guys here in the frame. And there we go. And so, let us go ahead and begin. The Mutant Message Down Under. I guess before we officially begin, hello, Alpha Gecko. I'm going to read to you the back of the book that I have here, and then I'll kind of give chat and everyone else a idea of what this book is supposed to be about. An American woman is summoned by a remote tribe of nomadic aboriginals who call themselves the Real People to accompany them on a 4-month-long walkabout through the outback. While traveling barefoot with them through 1,400 miles of rugged desert terrain, she learns a new way of life, including their methods of healing, based on the wisdom of a 50,000-year-old culture. Ultimately, she experiences a dramatic personal transformation. Mutant Message Down Under recounts a unique, timely, and powerful, life-enhancing message for all humankind. It is not too late to save our world from destruction if we realize that all living things, be they plants, animals, or human beings, are part of the same universal oneness. If we heed this message, our lives, like the lives of the real people, can be filled with a great sense of purpose. So what I want to ask you two to start off is, what were your thoughts going into this reading? Let me just throw that question out there. What were your thoughts going into this?
You go ahead first, Guy.
My thoughts going into it, I've never heard of the book. I read the back of it just like you, and I was like, all right, yeah, okay. I can see that. This could be good. Yeah. I like when they take someone from the city and throw them into like native elements.
Yeah, nice feral child upbringing kind of thing. So I had no expectations going into the book because I just saw the cover. I'm like, all right. And when I looked it up, it's like best-selling work of fiction. I'm like, super cool. Let's go in this. I read a synopsis, kind of like a very, very quick one. And it was like recounting the tales of Marlo as she traveled through the Australian outback. Oh, okay, this sounds cool. I wanted to visit Australia. Let's see what what it deals with. And so I didn't really have anything going into it. Just blank slate.
Okay, tabula rasa. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that I echo those similar sentiments. I never heard of this book before. It kind of sounded like it was going to be a fun little book about like a travel book. Essentially, is kind of the first idea that I got, where a woman learns some things about native cultures, indigenous cultures, and then also some things probably in reference to herself and her society, which I guess was true in some regards. But yeah, that was kind of my expectations. So when I first got the book and I opened it up and I started to read like the introduction, and there was some. I have the 10-year edition, some dedications, contents, or what have you. And one of the things that happened in the very first part of the book, before it actually begins, is that it says that this is a work of fiction, and it is written as a work of fiction in order to protect the identities and protect the real people. And so I'm thinking to myself, well, okay, so this book is going to be a work of fiction, which means that there'll probably be some moments in drama, the dramatic moments that may or may not be accurate. Some things might be altered. Some things might be a little hyperbolic. I was kind of expecting some of those things after reading that first page. So in the beginning of the story, the woman gets a phone call from, I guess, an Aboriginal tribe, the real people, and then essentially says, hey, we're going to have a ceremony. Come to Australia or come to this location and we'll pick you up. Guy, can you respond to maybe tell the audience what happens at that point, and then maybe how you responded to that particular moment in the book?
You mean like so she gets off the plane and she gets to her hotel and she does all that, and then she gets dressed to meet these people where she's getting presented with an award for working with the youth in what is it, the urban youth or something, like getting them back on the right track or something like that. And
yeah, it was like teaching them how to use nets, but that happened later in the book, so it was almost like not quite a starting in action, but kinda.
Yeah, and then so she's getting presented with this award. So she's, oh yeah, you need to come here because these guys want to meet you. So she assumes she's getting an award. So she gets all dressed up, all fancy, and then like this what is it? It's like just a rust bucket Jeep comes to like pick her up or something.
Yep.
And she's like, well, okay, like whatever. And she gets in it, and they take her out to the middle of the desert. And she's like, well, this is sketchy, but I want my award, so
Yeah.
this is the person I'm supposed to meet. So goes out, they bring her to like a hut, right? And then
like basically a lean-to. It was like 3 sides and a roof.
Yeah. And then they tell her, give us all your stuff, and then they burn it.
And she's
like, she's like, well, okay.
Yes.
A long ways.
$1,000 watch. Yes.
Yep.
A
all her jewelry.
long ways out, because it's like a hour drive or something, she says, or like multiple hours.
Yeah, I think it's multiple hours. Yeah.
Yeah. They go from roads to dirt roads to no roads, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, what else is she supposed to do though? Just say no, and then
just
what?
tap him on the
Right.
shoulder.
They're probably not going to drive her back.
Yeah.
I mean, she's going there because she knows that this is like, oh, these are the leaders, the chiefs, the what have you. Like what they say is probably what I should be doing, because these are the people I'm here to see. So I don't know. Would I have done the same thing? Probably. I mean, that sounds like a party, I guess. I don't know, but it was weird that she did it in her upbringing and her where she came from.
So Guy, you are in this Jeep. You have all your prized possessions, which means that you're carrying around your computer.
Prized possessions, her traveling prized possessions.
I just bought a nice new dress. I got it on. It fits good.
Yeah, and now it's going to be lit on fire.
Yeah.
and gone.
I
Okay.
think I'd have more reaction than she does in the book, where she says nothing and goes, "Oof, well that's bad," and then follows them. Uh, but
Okay.
okay, I guess different people internalize different events differently. So
I mean, I would have
sure.
probably fought and be like, "Can I keep my passport? Like, I kind of need
Yeah.
that." But
That's,
she's also okay. Also, she's rich, right? So this expensive dress is, oh, I could just go get another one. You know?
Yeah. That's what she's thinking. It's like, oh, I don't need that stuff. I can just go buy it again.
yeah, and very so, and then a tribe elder comes up and he's like, "I'm going to be your translator slash guide, and just follow me as I follow them. We're gonna go that way." And then there's a couple chapters, and then it does and here's how we got here, where it's like, okay, she did this whole thing with these nets, teaching Aboriginal people how to make nets because they didn't know how to make nets apparently.
Mm-hmm.
Why would they know how to
Keep
make
out the
nets?
bugs.
Yeah. Like,
So
obviously, they're lesser people that don't know how to think, so she has to teach them how to make nets. This smart white savior that comes in and teaches them how to make nets,
mm-hmm.
and teaches them how to sell it because they don't know how to sell stuff. The foreign concept, and then because of that, that's when the tribe elder is like, you deserve an award, and that award is us burning all of your possessions, and then the rest of the book happens.
Okay, consider this though. Consider if it was like a fictional story and it was not marketed as valid in any way. How cool of a like leaving the Shire moment is that? You get to that point and it's like, okay, go naked. We're burning everything. You're gonna become a new person. I mean, as a story element, I latched onto that immediately. I was like, this is cool.
I very much enjoyed that the first 4 chapters as you're like gearing up to see like what's going to happen. I definitely enjoyed that hook where you're like, okay, what's gonna happen? Like this is all like strange person in a strange land kind of thing. And which I mean, there's a lot of stories that is their whole. That's what they do, So I'm like, okay, I see what we're getting into here. Yeah,
it definitely grabs you in the beginning, and you're like, "All right, I'm ready. Let's do this."
we're going on a hero's journey.
Yeah, you're ready to burn
And
your own stuff,
I'm gonna burn my clothes, and I'm gonna pick out a rock, and I'm gonna go.
Yeah. Don't let me forget. I want to talk about the rock later on in the story. I'm glad you mentioned that guy. Guy, also, you said in Discord, I don't know, like a month or 2 ago, that this story kind of resonated with you. Obviously, much more than the other one because you're, feral childhood. So I'm wondering, I'm just if we get to a point where you're like, hey, this is what I'm talking about. That's why I said this in the story. Go ahead and mention that. I don't know if we're at that point or if you want to comment on that right now, or if you don't want to comment on all, but.
I'm not. I mean, I've never burned all my clothes. That's not okay. I mean, it's not like, hey, let's destroy our stuff and then go for a walk. That's not what happened. So.
Yeah.
Oh, so what you're saying is you were lying about being a feral child, because
well, you go out on a trip and you come back, and then instead of you just burn your clothes and then start over. Like,
yeah, 100%. Yes.
100%, just like more bits. Thank you so much, Baldrige. Sorry, I thought that was a good segue. Maybe not. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah. So, and then we begin the walk.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Go ahead.
At that point, it is this elder who I'll be honest, it's been a month and a half since I read this book. I forgot his name. But it is, him taking her through the desert and kind of like as they do stuff, being like, okay, this is why we're doing this, and this is why we're doing that, and don't worry about the sharp grass cutting your feet. We're going to spread an ointment on it, so like there's almost a sense of like, there was this rising action towards the beginning, right? And then we Tarantino'd it, and we go back, and it's like, okay, and here's how we got here, and then it hops right back into it. And there was like this sense of rising action, and then it just like, and then they're walking. And then we get to the end of the book. Okay, so I'm skipping a little bit there, but not a lot.
I
really.
mean,
Uta's the
Uta, yeah. Good call.
and they introduce each other with names such as what their like
abilities are.
Their born name, right? Like I was born to be this, kind of. That's very
right, like Native
Native
American culture. Yes.
Yeah. Where what is it? Storyteller, secret keeper.
Yeah.
And then they just called her
play with fire.
Mutant.
Which is where mutant comes from, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Which they're like, oh yeah, you're a mutant because you are, you've lost the ability to walk on sharp grass, that kind of thing.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Or her mental, has become deformed. Civilization has deformed. I don't know, people like us, right? Is essentially what the book is saying.
I wasn't going to say it, but yes.
We're the mutants, essentially, is what the book is trying to point out here. What do you... Yeah, go for it, Guy. Go for it.
The sharp grass thing, okay? Let's start with that.
Okay.
Walking on sharp grass does hurt, yes. But I have been in a predicament where, I'm just going to walk across all these thorn bushes barefoot, and it's fine. Like, after a while, you get used to it. And I remember having to carry my sister across these because she wasn't as, raised in it as I was. So, like, be like, oh man, I have to get across. I was like, just walk across, And she's like, no, it hurts my feet. Oh, just walk across, and eventually it won't. Like,
the thing, especially about that, is I don't know if you've looked at pictures of the Australian outback. That grass is not like the grass around here. That's not like crabgrass out in the Midwest.
You're not walking on thistles.
It's like bunches of it. They're like very distinct plots of grass.
Yeah.
So in order for her to walk on it, she'd have to try. Like she'd actually have to attempt to walk on it because there's dirt around it.
There's also those thorns everywhere too, though. So I wonder if that's what she was trying to get at. But
maybe.
I mean, I could obviously, if she's walking barefoot through the Australian desert, then there's going to be a major problem with her feet that are used to walking in shoes. She's not used to walking all day. And so if that's, that's kind of maybe a little bit of hyperbole. But that's a hyperbole I can forgive. There's certainly other things in here that, I think that the tone of our conversation pretty soon, I think the chat is going to understand that there's a lot of things that might not be forgiven. But
let's finish up the synopsis then.
Yeah,
before we
absolutely.
Get too deep into that. Yeah.
So again, the tone of this conversation is probably relatable to what Baldridge is saying, where the book starts off and it's super. It feels exciting, and you're ready to get going, and then there's this walkabout, and it's kind of like a lull throughout the story where like these little episodes happen. And so we're kind of getting to that episodic point, and so to go through each and every episode is probably a little too much to do for the conversation here. But some major themes or major concepts that happen include like the indigenous and their relationship with like music and games and competition and money and trading and killing and what are some other stuff that I might be forgetting here if since I'm just listing stuff.
I mean, that was a lot of it. The way you relate to food. Oh, you're addicted to water? What's wrong with you? Why are you addicted to water? Sheesh. Stuff like that where, and granted, there's definitely cultures that go longer periods without, substantial water, but that's because they can't afford it, not because it's good.
I'm going to jump in there again because hunting on the top of a mountain, okay? In the desert.
Which we've all done, yes.
We've all done, okay? Out there, we are, I'm dying because it's freaking hot, whatever. This old cowboy comes up, and he just looks like completely just like when like classic old cowboy where his face is just leather, right? And we
Mhm.
try and offer him water and he will not take it because he's telling us, I don't need it. You guys do. So it's just kind of one of those things. And he's been out, I don't know how long he's been out there. He came out of the middle of nowhere. And we ended up getting him to drink some, but he only drank like a quarter of a bottle of water and then gave it back to us because he's like, you guys need it. I don't. He kind of kept trying to say that. So I kind of felt like, okay, I could see that kind of thing going on, but the being addicted to water, I don't know about that.
Yeah. Also, I have changed my background to a picture of the Australian outback, so you
Yeah,
can
this
see
is a
what that
spine
grass is
effect.
like. This is that grass that she was complaining about. So you can see that she could step here instead of here, just here instead of here.
I do think maybe Baldridge, there's a few too many trees on there to be deep in the
Yeah,
outback, but
dead center outback probably.
yeah, you know, the idea is definitely taken. There's definitely space to walk in between, but I'm sure that there's, you know, rocks and stuff like that. As far as like, I wanted to comment a little bit on what Guy was saying because I thought that there is some kind of like addiction to the need of food and water, frankly, as far as like, you know, who ate food today? You know, I'm going to raise my hand. Probably both of you are going to raise your hand. Who ate food yesterday? And the fact of the matter is that human beings do not need to eat every day. We could go up to, well, theoretically, we go 60 to 80 days without eating. Obviously, that's ridiculous. But we could probably go, you know, 2 or 3 days without eating and still be relatively healthy and, you know, have energy. And so I do think that there is this little bit of, you know, every 6 or 7 hours, we're like, oh my God, I'm dying. I'm so hungry. I need food. And so I do think that there might be a little bit of addiction to eating food. That, you know, maybe we're in a culture where we just don't have, you know, are going outside and just walking isn't really an option for most of, I guess, civilized America because you can, I guess. But my point is like my space is, you know, 15 feet in my front yard and 15 feet in my backyard, right? That is my space. And to where like Guy, I know that we've seen pictures of your domicile, of your residence when you were a little bit younger. How much space did you have, man? You had the world, right?
I have no idea. Yeah.
That's a
I
huge
never saw the
difference.
end.
Yeah, exactly. So I do think that there might be a little bit of this culture of needing these
Also,
like
you know,
food
maybe
and,
the tolerance of the annoyance of thirst. Like someone could
Right.
be like,
Yeah.
I'm so thirsty. It's like, well, maybe you've never been thirstier than that. So
Yeah. But so,
yeah.
well, how many days is that in? Do we even know? Like when they start complaining about it, was that like 3 days in with no water, or was that like an hour?
yeah,
You know,
it's definitely like more than a day in,
Yeah.
but yeah, there's the flow of time is not like perfectly kept track
Yeah, I
of.
lose track
I
of
think it's
that.
on purpose, you know, because like I think that could be a good writing technique to show that she was not fully with it during the trip. You know, that like time seemed to flow weirdly for her because it was a situation she's not used to. Like that makes sense to me, but
Yeah.
I don't. If that was what they were trying to do with the way that they wrote that, whether or not that was successful, we'll probably get into later. But it could be used as a writing technique to get that kind of feeling across to the reader.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think the next like big moment is the leg injury, right? I
Uh
don't.
it's
I
been a while.
I
I'm
think
not
that
sure.
there's definitely
No,
some
there's the
things that
food, the
happen.
eating.
Also telepathy happens. Before.
Why is that weird?
I well, I actually kind of want to talk about that a little bit.
Okay.
I want to get your ideas first. Please. And maybe you guys could speak about what happened, or if you guys want me to, I can as well. Okay, so essentially what happens is so remember we're in the desert with the Aboriginal people, and one of the people is like a hunter or something like that. And he goes off in the group and he gets a kangaroo or something like that, and suddenly the rest of the group just stops and freezes. And Marlo's like, "What's going on?" And she doesn't say anything, and they're just not moving. And then this guy is way off in the distance. You can't even see him. Like he's like miles away. And then suddenly the elder's like, "Our hunter wants to bring home a whole kangaroo. This is sacrilegious. Should we allow him to do so?"
Not bringing the whole one because he wants to cut the tail off, right?
Oh,
It's heavy.
to make it, yeah, you're right. To make it, lighter so he can bring it back. Yeah, you're correct. And so then she's like, how do they talk to one another? They're not even in the vicinity of of each other. And she realizes that there's telepathy between them. Thoughts? Is this crazy?
Well, they're like, yeah, I drank some bad water too, so I'm also gonna need some healing when I get back. And I mean, if these guys are out there, why would he be? He should know what bad water looks like, right? Start with.
I mean, it's their first time, so.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have no idea. This was the most far-fetched thing in the book that I could not relate to. So
because I know that there's definitely like people will get very in touch with their surroundings when they're in an environment, like when I'm at work, I can tell what machines are down just from sound because I know the normal ambient sound of where I'm at, right? So there could be like some of that going on in a situation like that where it's like, okay, we should be seeing / hearing this, but we're not. But that's not what they said, so I can't even give them that kind of benefit of the doubt because
maybe that's what it was. Maybe it was some sort of sound thing, and she just didn't know how to sit and be quiet and listen. Maybe there was some actual like yelling or signaling going on that she just was unaware of.
Well, because then the counter to that though is that apparently Uta, right? Uta.
Yeah.
Uta's the
translator.
yeah.
Like translated what they were doing as telepathy. Maybe it's a mistranslation kind of deal where he just didn't know.
Cordless phone, right?
Yeah, maybe it's a Nokia. I don't know. But it could be that he just didn't have the words in English to say smoke signal, which doesn't sound likely to me because I think telepathy is a more bizarre English word compared to that kind of stuff. But
I think he doesn't he actually say mental telepathy as well? Like,
yes.
Isn't that what he says? Yeah. So.
And that's not even getting into some of the stuff that happens later at the watering hole. But
yeah. So I consistently ask myself, I'm like, because obviously, like we have talked about, it's a fiction book supposedly, and I ask myself, okay, so what is the truth of the story? And so what is the truth is telepathy? And it could be exactly like you're saying, Baldridge. There's a sound maybe that here. Maybe the guy screams out of pain because he has to cut off the tail and it gets carried on the wind and it's just this, faint sound or something. I mean, who knows? But yeah. Okay, good. Let us move on to whatever topic you two so desire.
So one thing I want to point out, and Mr. Laser, you I think you did teach English, right? Something like that. A lot of books revolve around conflict, and there is like a good 2/3 of this book where there is none. Like
it's right after the incident we just talked about with the kangaroo, right? Where there's just this, and that's kind of where I was like, I'm with the book, and then this hits, and I'm like, well, this is getting weird, and then like it's real silent, escalation wise for a while.
Yeah, at that point, like there's some internal conflict, but there's not a lot of like exterior things happening. It's a lot of like, oh, you eat wrong, you should eat right. You drink wrong, you should drink right. you nature wrong. You should like it's like different lectures on the state of modern man, essentially. Uh, so like there's just not any external conflict happening. You could be generous and say that Marlo has a lot of internal conflict during this, but it doesn't. It just feels like, at least from the narration in the book, that character, that self-insert character, is just there for the ride. So I don't know how
Well,
much.
that's kind of like how Poop said, how you would kind of touch where the conflicts in the narrator, where, like when what's the dude's name? Like Poop Finder, I think that's his name, something like that.
Sure.
And he's really good
It's
at
not his
finding dry
name,
poop.
but it's
It's something like that. It's
I
like
don't
Dung
remember what it
Finder
is.
or something like that. Like that's his job. He finds that so they can burn it.
Mhm.
And she kind of has like this internal monologue of, "This is important, and I was worried about my diamonds being destroyed." Like, but like she was having that internal struggle of scale of value, like it was
Mhm.
tilting. So
yeah. There's definitely internal
there's different
conflict
ticks of
and
that.
observations, and there's conflict with our way of, when I say our, what I mean is like essentially modern society's way of thinking with the Aboriginal thinking. There's conflict there, but yeah, external conflict, very little. So I would agree with that.
Yeah, up until the leg break, I think.
Yeah. You wouldn't want to
Was
talk
the
about the leg break?
before? Was the leg break before they ate like that big worm or whatever?
Oh,
I think it's after, because doesn't
Is
it
it?
go leg break and then once again, we read this book like a month and a
Yeah,
half
it was a while ago.
so apologies for us not taking the time to reread it. But I think it goes leg break, and then there's a little bit more travel, and then they start getting to the edge of the outback, right?
Hmm.
yeah. Leg break's on like
Yeah.
90, so it's like
Oh,
almost
okay.
towards the end of the.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, that middle section, there's a whole lot of it. You know, second acts generally are a hard thing to do, but yeah. So let me see if I'm recalling this correctly. Someone goes out to gather something or hunt down something, and they are on the edge of like a not like a sheer cliff, because that's not really something that happens out in a desert, but almost like a it's just some sort of like steep hill.
There was
Yeah,
a
they
drop
were
off or something.
they
Yeah,
were
they're
chasing the shade of a rain cloud, right? So they were all real happy. They were started
yeah.
off with a good day.
Yeah, exactly. And so they're on this ridge with no vegetation on it, so it's kind of bald. And then it gives out, and he goes falling down, and it sounds like he breaks his femur, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
And then they go down, bring him back up, and then they take his leg and they go, ha, while chanting, and he's like, okay, good to go, let's go, let's continue walking through the desert, I got this. Like, I don't think I'm like missing something, right? There's no like wrappings.
This is all perspective from her as well. She says it
Right.
seems like they did nothing. Maybe they did.
Yes, but if we recall, like, she's supposedly like there
Works
to
in-
do
yeah.
doctor stuff. Like, she
Yeah,
is
true.
there to lecture on medical things, which she never gets into like very specifics of that, which will make sense later. But so like she's there to lecture on something to do with the medical environment, and then so she should be a trained doctor or nurse or pharmacist, something, and you would think that she would have a decent understanding of like what goes into first aid, and so she's watching them, and apparently like they all kind of gathered around, and then they gave her room to see, uh, so it doesn't sound like at least from the way it's written, that she would be missing a lot, you know?
Yeah, her objective there, the reason why they brought her in was to, teach her the ways essentially, and so she was supposed to learn about this healing, and so it's not like they did something and then she's only saying bits and pieces. Theoretically, she saw all of it and was supposed to learn about it. And now, what really happened? Well, yeah, I mean, native cultures probably do some chanting and some soothing and some like, willpower, putting the leg together kind of thing, which obviously makes a whole lot of sense when you don't have modern medicine. I was okay with all of that, except for it seemed like the next, hour, 2 hours, the guy that broke his leg was like back to normal.
Yeah.
And that's right.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I have generally a pretty high pain tolerance, and like if I've sprained my foot and my leg while playing sports, and I wasn't just like walking through the outback after that, and granted, it's a different culture. Maybe they got
yeah,
higher pain tolerances, and like, I guess if you have to, you have to. But like, it's from the way that the author describes it, he sounds fine. Like,
yeah.
Maybe his leg wasn't broke. Maybe she just assumed it was.
That's the hyperbole. That's possible.
Yeah. Maybe.
Right.
Was it believable enough when you were reading it to be like, okay, this probably, maybe this happened?
now, don't they like actually describe like white sticking through the skin?
Yeah, I think Poops just said it. Like, I think the bone was sticking out
Was it
in the book. Yeah, I think so.
wow.
Are like distended against the
There,
flesh?
yeah, there was something like it was. I think there was a very physical description about this bone bring, like cleanly broken. Not just a fracture, but cleanly broken. Theoretically in two. So.
Right.
Oh yeah, because they did need the blood clot stuff. So there definitely was some sort of broken skin, right?
Yes. Yeah. Because you can't have a blood clot without some sort of. Yeah, exactly. No, that's a
Okay.
good point. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just shaking my head at that. I'm just like, oh my gosh, really? Come on,
Yeah, and then after that, we have a little bit more kind of lecturing on the nature of man and their relationship with nature. A lot of the middle of the book feels very much like a New Age manifesto kind of thing, where it's like
Just snake skin shedding. You should shed your old
right.
hate and whatnot, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, different metaphors.
Yeah. And then from there, I think we start getting to the edge of the outback. There's now trees and watering holes, more consistent. Well, no, I'm skipping a very important thing, right? Does the large rock with the shrine inside of it happen before or after the watering hole with the alligators? I think it's after, right?
You're gonna have to forgive me. I don't remember about the alligators.
I don't remember the alligators. I remember the camel though.
Or crocodiles.
I mean,
or
yeah, I
whatever.
do remember. Like they essentially said, "There's alligators in the water," and they did some chanting, and the alligators went away and was free to go.
Well, yeah, they telepathically told the
Yeah,
crocodile
something like that.
to get out of there.
I mean, that sounds fine to me. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that.
I hear you, guy. I just don't remember where that is in relation to the rest of the story.
Right.
So basically,
So.
what they break the leg, right? The leg goes on.
Cool.
They talk for a while talking about the different, like the shedding the snakes, the different relationships with the totems is what they call them, right? Like, what does it say here? The soaring falcon teaches to look at the larger picture. The kangaroo teaches to always move forward. That kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's for
Yeah.
3 chapters. 3 chapters of that. That's where the dead space of the book is, I think, because there's the entire 3 chapters of them being like Baldridge said, you're eating wrong, you're thinking wrong, you're doing wrong.
Yeah.
Then it moves on to the music talk, right? And they talk about the talents of people. Be like, oh yeah, this dude's name is it. She named him. The mutant person named him Dung Collector. So that's just what she started calling him.
Mm.
But
Yep.
then they talk about how dung collecting is just as important as getting food. Like everyone's kind of equal; they all have their own part to play. Which is another kind of dead part of the book that goes on for like 2 chapters. So that like 5-6 chapters right there was just no conflict, nothing, just talking about how you're doing stuff wrong. And then they kill that camel, right? And they start talking about how you have to use all of it, and how they used to not eat meat. You know, they're like, oh yeah, we're used to just be vegetarians and stuff. And you don't remember that part?
I don't remember that
Yeah.
part.
Let's see, what is it? Dinner surprise. His name was Kindred to Large Animals.
Yes.
Makes his offer for his talent to connect with a large beast and uses it to encounter a camel, communicating to it through telepathy.
Yes. Okay.
They
yeah,
agree
yeah.
to take the female as their prey and quickly kill her. That kind of stuff. So that part was weird to me. Which, I mean, so I have such, like, this book did hit certain things where I was like, okay, yeah, I can connect that to something of my own. Like you go hunting with someone who's never, like, their first deer hunt or whatever. They can walk up and the deer will be fine until they like, they realize, oh wait, this person's legitly just here to kill me, and then they'll take off. Like, and other times there's people who don't really, have you ever seen like a kid that doesn't want to hunt? They're being pushed out by their parents or whatever to hunt because they're like, this is what men do, that kind of thing. Like, no, all right, well then the deer's just sitting there and it doesn't do anything because it's like, this guy has no ill will towards me, he doesn't want to do it, and they'll just stand there and do nothing.
So I can kind of tell that the animal.
But that could, yeah, it could be like just instincts, it could just be that kind of thing. But that's how I relate it to. As far-fetched as it sounds, like, I'm not going to be like, well, I'm thinking I could hear those camels over there, which could happen. Like, I hear a group of camels, right? And be like, camels, stay there, and then walk to them. Like, that's kind of weird.
Yeah. Yeah. But no, like the whole part about the camel just being like, yes,
Yeah.
you want to kill me? Yes, please come kill me. That's odd, to be generous.
Yeah.
And then so yeah, they eat the camel. They tell the crocodiles to get out of the watering hole. They get their water. And then they go into this big rock that has a shrine in it.
Well, was she leading at that point? I think
Yes.
right after the camels, they're telling her, all right, your turn to lead.
Yeah.
And she's like, I don't want to. And it's like, well, we're either going to die and sit here because we're following you now. And then she almost kills him by walking to that water hole, right? And then it sounded like happenstance just brought her to the water hole. Like she randomly stumbled onto it.
Yeah, I love this chapter of the book because, like, this is like a moment I think that you could kind of reflect on your own, not like leadership abilities, but like, am I a leader? I think that's a good question to ask yourself. And no, if you think about that question, you're like, okay, when have I had a legitimate opportunity to lead a group of people, in a life or death situation? And the thing is like, most people don't lead in life or death situations. I mean, at best, I'm leading kids in the classroom towards a greater future in their education, but really, that's just a romanticized version of what a teacher does. I mean, yes, I try to be a leader, but at the same time, it's like, it's not life or death. Like, they're gonna get fed. I'm gonna lead them in the lunchroom.
Right.
So reading this chapter, because I don't know, I like to become a better person as I read books, and so I was like, how can I become a better person, a better leader through this chapter? Um, and you know, as she was asking for other people for help, like she was begging for their help,
Hmm.
and they weren't
Dying,
helping her.
dying,
Dying
begging.
for dying. She was dying, and they were dying because she wasn't leading them. And she's like, and they're like, no, like you have to do this, you know. And I think it kind of, it's kind of weird to talk about because, you know, we're kind of told like it's okay to ask for help, which I agree with, but I think it's also okay to say like, I will not help you. You have to do this. You have to learn how to do this. And, you know, it's kind of like they put her in a life or death situation and she pulled out the rock, right? We're getting back to the rock. She pulled out the rock and, you know, it was like her path was lit up or lit up. And I don't think that it was her path. I don't think that was the rock specifically. I think it was like, you know, that movie Inception? It was like her little token, right? That kind of like brought her back to reality, and she was able to have clarity and think to herself, uh, you know, what can I do to be successful? What do I need to do to be able to save myself and save these other people, right? Because this became bigger than her, and I think that that's probably what ultimately led her to be successful was for her to say, "This is bigger than me. I'm not just saving myself, but I'm saving everyone else that I'm leading." And I don't think that in society we get very many chances to do that. So I was certainly
And then she put
excited.
the rock in her mouth.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
remember that. Did she do that?
yeah. So
Okay. All right. I don't
she
remember that.
takes the rock out of the natural pouch, and then
Yeah.
she's
Well,
like, my mouth is so dry. I'm going to put this rock in my mouth because it
mm.
seems right."
It
And then
is. It is.
and then she puts the rock in her mouth, and she salivates, and she's like, "Ooh, my mouth is not dry anymore," because
That
uh,
happens. I've
And yeah,
done
you're
that.
shaking your head like that's a
Yeah,
legitimate thing, right?
it is. Yes, it
Okay.
is.
And that's kind of what I was thinking. Like, oh, I can believe this.
yeah,
So,
But it's not gonna
but
make you less thirsty. Like
yeah,
it helps a little, but
all right. It doesn't
yeah,
give you water, you know.
right.
It just produces water. So,
yeah.
okay.
All right. Let's get to the cave. I'm done being on this side of the book, so I'm ready
Yeah.
to get to the cave.
What does that mean? You're ready to tear it down? Is that what you mean?
Well, because so we have cave and then walk into city, and I think
Yes.
that's it, right?
Pretty close. Yeah.
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 There's some themes I want to talk about, but yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, uh, she walks in. She leads them to this cave that they knew that they were going to go there. She didn't know that they were going there. Uh, and there's like a not secret, but more of a unused passage that goes down, and it's like all of the nomadic tribes would meet up here, and this is where we record our history through wall writings, and they have like a bunch of stuff in there, and they deliver this super important message to her about the future of the real people, right? If I think I'm recalling that right.
Yeah. And they were arguing whether, like, oh, she made this walk, so let's tell her about it. And they led her
Right.
down into a little cave.
Yeah, yeah, and there was like a bit of a back and forth on whether she was worthy to go into the cave.
Now,
Um,
what? So they did decide that she was worthy, but
mhm.
why? Is it just because she led? She finally the rock in her
uh,
mouth and led, and she's just like, you know what? Everyone saw, it and they're like, all right, yeah, okay, this is the turning point where she's on our side now. It's like what that was like their test for them.
yeah, I guess so. I don't, I, yeah, you don't know like what's going on with the people off screen, so we don't really know the what or why. But I mean, Uta
They,
kind of says it right,
I
where
mean,
it's
so
like,
say you're in their shoes, just
uh-huh.
detach yourself from
Well, we don't wear
reality.
shoes.
Okay, put yourself in their hooves, and
That is what she said. So, yep. Uh-huh.
yeah, they have
She
like
described her feet as hooves.
hmm And would you, if you had this information and you were, you know, the end of the book and everything, would you have been like, yes, she's good to know this now?
No.
I would not have either. So I could see how they're like,
Agree.
no, she's not ready for this. But at the same time, they're like, we're out of time. We need to find someone to tell this to.
Right.
Man, we should have invited like 3 white people instead of just one. God, they don't even have options. But yeah.
I actually, okay, so I also thought about that. I assumed they were making a journey to somewhere, and they were bringing her to eat her in case. Like I had that cross my mind, where they're like, yeah, we're bringing this person with us, but if she doesn't work out, we're just gonna eat her. Like,
right. No. Like, it's so like the way that the book is written, it's very much a like get in touch with your inner self thing. You know, like find the real you as you're doing this. At least I feel that that's kind of like the message of the book is the reliance on outside forces, maybe become more reliant on your internal strength. Like it definitely feels like that kind of thing.
I'm gonna read Poops's comment because I think it's pretty good. I always feel that we can never know ourselves until we are tested or until we face true hardship. The point of this walkabout was for her to know herself as something more than a mutant, to know she and all of us have that potential to survive, just as an animal has that potential to survive, because we are no exception. We are just a human animal. Yeah.
jeez, that's good.
Why aren't you in this conversation, Poops?
Yeah, I mean, like that's definitely what's going on here. Yeah, you know, like there's this, there's this test. You know, the walk is a test.
Yeah.
That she didn't realize was a test until we get to this cave and we go inside. And there's like a bunch of stuff in there, right? Where they collect things, and it's like she described it as like a living museum, right? I know that's not like an exact quote of it, but it was something like that.
Yeah, it was definitely
yeah,
about. I mean, the cave was like this hub of the real people and the Aboriginals and their idea of humanity and history. So that's all I was gonna say. Guy, go ahead.
At this point of the book, I was right when we hit the cave part. I was almost been like, well, maybe the book should have ended before this. This is where it got a little too much for me to, you know, I could see it. Yeah, okay, they have this underground bunker somewhere with all these, you know, drawings and stuff like that. But when they're there and they're kind of walking through it, like, oh yeah, I know this, and we're gonna write on this wall here to say, you know, we're passing on our information to you, and then we're gone and we're never coming back.
Right, because like the revelation is that the real people have entrusted this this person to spread their message throughout the world, and they are going to purposefully no longer procreate and just let themselves live out their days and die off.
Yes,
is the revelation we have in the cave.
Yes, this is the message that she receives.
Yes. And that she needs to go out and deliver this message to the people via this book.
She's the kookaburra, right? That's what they called her.
In that old gum tree, yes.
Yes.
And like she's like, oh, yep, okay, yep. And then like I almost feel like the weight of it, like she has some internal conflict at this revelation, but it kind of feels like there's not as much strife and worry about taking this message forward than I would because like so once again, let's put ourselves in the shoes of this character in this situation. You've been walking with these people for months at this point, because like I think it's set. They say that the whole trip was like multiple months worth of time, right?
It was like 3 months.
Yeah, 3 or 4 months.
Yeah.
I missed who that was. That's okay. Sorry, continue.
So she's with these people for 3 or 4 months. She should probably know them fairly well by now. You'd think, like, they do this nighttime kind of like small gathering and talk to each other, like every night basically for 3 to 4 months, and they are saying, all right, now that you know us and our way of living, because you're now an expert in this, take this information and go out into the world and spread the message while we die. And the amount of like weight on her shoulders versus like that, the idea that a group of people that I've gotten to know and traveled with are like, okay, now we're gonna die, but you're the real one, get out there.
There's no shock. There was no shock at all, really.
Right, there's a little bit, but it doesn't feel enough, you know?
Right.
And I mean, she does try. She does try and go tell people. She tries really hard in the beginning, and she gets laughed at and mocked and everything like that.
So she released this book instead.
Yes.
But then she's like, okay, I'm gonna do it, and she walks into they lead her like to the outskirts of civilization, and then leads her in there, and she walks up to somebody, and they're like, yeah, lady, you look like death run over. Here's a quarter for the payphone.
Yeah.
And she's like, bring me money, I need money, and a cab ride. And then the rest of the book is her like trying to spread the message for like half a chapter, and then coming back to America, and that's the end.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we definitely missed, some things, but give or take, that's pretty much how it happened. And so I can't keep a straight face sometimes. Thank you so much for the bits. I appreciate that. And so, okay. So that's kind of how it happened. You guys need to talk a little bit. Bits make me happy.
Yeah. Okay. So she goes into town. She stinks. And she has that moment. I kind of like this moment where
it's
the
fun.
dude, she comes up to him and she's like, hey, how's it going? And the guy's like, get away from me. And she's like, oh, well. And she like throws her money and like leaves. And she's been in this such a tight knit like family group feeling that was super foreign to her. But that is what she would have done to them, right? Before.
Right.
Like 100%, she'd been like, "Man, these guys stink. Here's some money. Leave me alone." Like,
yeah, and and then she goes out to give the message. So, Laser, you pointed out that when you looked at the book, it was like a work of fiction. Blah 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 blah. The version that I read did not have any of that.
Oh, really? Interesting.
It was very much, hey, this is the book. This happened. This is factual. Like this is what's going on, right? And then so I went in reading it, being like, yes, here we go. This is what's going to happen. This all happened, and then we get to like the first like telepathy thing, and I'm like, oh, this didn't happen at all. Okay. Oh, okay. So then I had to look. Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Lacy. I have to chat up here.
I was gonna say that mine also didn't say that it was fiction.
I'm sorry, guys. Okay.
Get your things out of here.
Sorry, guys. Sorry. Let's see here. Oh my god.
Silent hype.
It's Guy. Thank you so much for the 5 gift subs. Appreciate it. Thank you for all the bits. Balleridge Alpha Gecko, thank you so much for the 100 bits. Poops, thank you so much for the 400 bits. And the 5 gifted subs. You're crazy. I appreciate it, everybody. Balleridge, thank you so much for the gifted sub to Melda, who is a brand new recent follower.
The 300, if I'm counting right.
This is 300 followers. Insanity is what this is. Thank you for subscribing. Welcome to the classroom. This is very loud in my ear, so it's hard to hear both, right? So.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, you know. Oh my god, Ed, I didn't recognize it. We have a level 4 hype train. Oh my god, you guys are insane.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, what is that? What's up, Mr. Laser?
Thank you so much, Paul Rich, for the gift sub to Alpha Gecko. I appreciate that.
Thank you for subscribing. Welcome to the classroom.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, this time it needs to settle down. You guys need to sit in your seats, okay? We gotta learn.
Hands up. I'm not clicking anything.
Okay, all right. Classic overcrowding. There you go. Hello, Mick Broguy. Welcome to the classroom.
Classic overcrowding.
Notebooks allowed. Yeah. My head hurts right now, guys. Hold on.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay.
Yeah, okay. We'll wait.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm a pro.
After
I can
talking
do
about
this.
this book, my head hurts a little bit.
Okay, so
Sorry, I had to get something.
Okay.
So Guy and Balderidge,
Yes.
neither of your books said that this was a work of fiction.
I
Right.
don't believe so.
Nope.
So Guy, I know that you have an ebook version, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Oh, you read an ebook version too. Okay, I'm the only person that still reads real books, I guess. Go figure, right?
It's the same words.
Same words.
Humble
Same
brag.
words.
Humble,
Same word.
humble brag. Interesting. So, did you guys go into this thinking then that was going to be a true story?
I never go into a book thinking it's a true story.
Okay.
I thought it was not necessarily true,
Right.
but
Based in reality, anyway.
yeah,
Okay.
like, oh, this is what happened, and I'm going to dramatize a little bit, kind of like
Okay.
you were saying
Yeah.
at the top here. Yeah, and then like at the all of the clothes burning, I'm like, well, that's weird, but maybe
Yeah.
that's what the
Where was
I
the
started-
straight cutoff? Where was the straight cutoff where you're like, no?
it was 100% telepathy.
Where?
100%
Like
telepathy.
The first
talking-
telepathy.
Okay.
Yep. And that's the point where I was like, okay, so this is obviously like very like fictional. There's definitely parts of this that are 100% untrue. How much of this happened versus didn't happen? So during that midpoint lull is when I was like, what do people say about this book? And it turns out when this was released, it was not released as a fiction book.
Mm.
It was released as this happened 100%. This is my story of my what I did in the Outback. Please buy my products. Because Marlo.
Yeah,
Marlo
Morgan.
Morgan, that's what it was. I kept
Mhm.
wanting to say Brando. But Double M there, like, went out selling this book as well as like a lot of new age, like health items and stuff alongside that. And I did not know that going into the book. But yeah, Lando Carlit. So going into the book, I thought it was going to be fairly close to Factual with some embellishments. And then looking at that, it's like, okay, turns out she is a pharmacist who worked in Sydney for like a month and then left the country and was full-time employed the whole time she was in Australia. So literally no chance of her doing this.
Did you have a cutoff, Mr. Laser, where you thought that? Okay, well, you already knew. You already knew that.
Yeah, well, I didn't know to the extent of how, I guess, made up this was, and the extent that my cutoff was probably the broken leg and, immediately starting to walk again. Like, when I got to, like, page 90, my reading of the book immediately slowed down. Like, I was devouring the first 90 pages.
Yeah.
But when I got to that point, it was like, oh, wow. Okay, well, I'm no longer enthralled anymore. And,
Ugh.
yeah, Guy, what did you want to say?
I went way farther, so I didn't have the line crossed until the cave. Like I was still on the okay. All right, I don't agree with you, but
You made it past
I'll
leg
listen.
chanting.
I made it past leg chanting.
Wow.
And then I started thinking, this book is written a lot like a story written by someone who heard it from someone else.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm wondering, okay, maybe something like this happened and was told to her, and she just kind of took it and was like, I'm going to make this my story,
Yeah. The other thing is a lot of, so when I was reading up about the critiques of the book, people are like, Aboriginals don't have these kinds of naming practices. They don't, like, they have like a skin name, but they're not like he who hunts elk. That's a very like North American kind of thing, and obviously not all indigenous peoples of the Americas follow that, but that's kind of where we get that kind of naming convention, right? And then so when that starts getting applied to people, I was a little like, huh, that's kind of a weird shared culture thing at first.
Yeah.
Then as I got further, I'm like, oh no, she just doesn't have other verbs or nouns to use in her quiver. This is just her applying her perspective to this other situation.
I also feel like that's why I absorbed it so easily, because I know very little about the Aboriginal people. So I was just like, oh, okay, okay, sure. Yeah. I know of that. I've heard of that.
Right. I don't know. I knew nothing about them, and in fact, I really still don't. And so if there's a silver lining here, it's like, I want to know more. Like, if this is all BS, like, I want to know the truth now. Like, I want to know more.
What's the kernel of truth?
Right.
Yeah. And like, there was, at some point, the Aboriginal people of Australia were like, hey, this is complete BS. Like, this is not true. And you are basically dragging us through the mud with your story here. And she made a formal apology to them, which conveniently did not get any airtime in the Americas, because of course it wouldn't. And then, after that point, it's like, okay, and then they rebranded the book as fiction. So, that kind of rubs me the wrong way a lot.
You want to read what Poop said there?
Yeah, I do, actually. Okay, so Poop said, for me, this book and situations like the Telepathy kind of followed some theories I've read in regards to the untapped potential of the human mind, and reminded me of some situations I've had, and probably everyone has had, where you're maybe thinking of a person and then they call you or something. Synchronicity is, I believe, what this word is called.
Yes.
Maybe that can be explained by a probability or whatever, but if we are mutants, perhaps this sort of thing is a remnant of that ability. Like anything, if you are raised practicing something or you place intention on it, you can develop that part of yourself more than, say, someone who's been raised to ignore or dismiss this ability as coincidence. So, yeah. And I kind of responded, and I feel like I have to explain myself a little bit. I believe magic used to exist, so I tend to agree with Poops. And Poops responded there, perhaps it still does. And by magic, I'm not saying that like we used to be able to shoot flames from our hands, but I think that we were definitely more connected with, like, let's say nature or something like that, where, you're not literally communicating with the trees. You're not saying, hey, what's up, buddy? But like I feel like back when we didn't have civilization, you could look at the trees and like you could feel the trees, so to speak, to where they would tell you something about, you know, maybe what's
Right.
coming or what's been, or that's kind of what I mean when I say magic.
You could be like, oh man, there's a bunch of birds flying from that area, and be like, oh yeah, the birds told me something's over there. Like you could
Yeah.
say it like that
Oh,
too.
there's a bunch of vultures circling over there.
Yeah.
That thing, you know? Yeah.
Well, yeah.
You know,
That's a
and, like,
simplified version.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
are, you know, like, you can tell by the sound of your tread through the forest how much moisture's been in the area recently, you know? And so you could be like, okay, everything's very dry here. I'm going to need to travel a little bit farther in order to like find water than I thought I was going to,
Mm-hmm.
or something like that, you know?
Yeah. Yes, you got censored by Nightmare. I don't know why. But continue.
So, and then like the other thing, as I was reading, like, so I started reading critiques on this halfway through the book, like I was saying. So during that the kind of mid-book lull that we were describing, a lot of it is that another the thing that kept me going was like reading people's critique of it and then trying to see like how I felt about that based on what I was actually reading, you know, and whether I agreed with that critique. That's what got me through the book essentially, because I was really struggling during that lull. I was telling you in Discord, Mr. Laser, that
Mm-hmm.
that second act really took it out of me.
That's where you just were like, you threw the book across
Yeah.
your Kindle across the room.
I took my phone. I was like, get out of here.
Man, you had to go buy a new phone, so I'm sorry about that.
Mhm.
You know?
Yes,
But-
and I thank you for the check. But the other thing is like I'm reading about the way that people in the outback actually like they'll have areas that like this tribe is basically in this sector. This area of land is this tribe. This area of land is this tribe. And then as people cross in there, they'd ask permission to cross. And while I don't expect the author to, like, every single time we cross the land, have a scene of them going, like, can we have permission? Yes, you have permission. Okay, and we
Right.
travel on. But there's none of that.
You'd expect
And-
at least once,
Yeah,
right?
you know,
Yeah.
and then also, apparently, a lot of the tribes are not nomadic. In fact, according to a lot of the critiques, there's no like fully nomadic tribes of Aboriginal people. Like that's just not the way that they function.
Mm-hmm.
So like I'm reading that, I'm like, okay, so like the very bones of the story, it's not like, you know, you get a little bit of the story and then you like extrapolate from there and add a couple of flourishes. It feels like the very bones of the story just are completely like, I don't know if there is a kernel of truth is what I
Mhm.
guess
But they're
I'm
also
getting.
not on. They're not. I mean, they do nomadic things, but this was like their walkabout. This wasn't like something they did every time, right?
That's
Yeah,
good. That's a good
I don't
point, guy.
know if
That's a good point.
I don't know if I recall if they made a distinction like that.
I don't either, and it's just in the title, which is why the only thing that it's like, well, they're going on walkabout, which is
Yeah.
you just go and then maybe you come back sometime,
Right.
Like,
But
Yeah.
they're still crossing in regards to Bald's point, they're still crossing into territories of other tribes, which the criticisms say, you know, that if you cross into the territories of the other tribes, you're supposed to communicate with those other tribes, right? And so I'm curious, Guy, did you happen to read any of these criticisms?
I didn't need them.
You didn't need them? Okay. all right.
So I have the Anarchist Library pulled up. This is one of my favorite paragraphs from it. It's fairly short. And this is a person that works with and was part of Aboriginal tribes in Australia. So they would know some of this stuff. And this is one of my favorite paragraphs from this critique, which is fairly lengthy, by the way. When I first picked up Mutant Message and flicked through it, I was prepared to believe that Marlo Morgan had some kind of experience with some Aboriginal people and kind of stretched the truth out in the interest of self-promotion. However, a close reading leaves me in no doubt that she did no such thing. Almost every detail is false. This is blatant cultural appropriation in the interest of profit. If the author is not an out-and-out cynical operator, then she is sadly deluded.
Yeah, I mean that is pretty much how I feel, and that's why I keep saying that is it something she heard and then just was like, oh, that'd make a great story, like. But even then, the details were missing from whatever she heard, so she just kind of had to throw those in there, and that's just where it's all wrong.
Yeah, and like reading this person's like very deep, like that is one paragraph of like.
They go like page by page. This isn't true. This isn't true. This isn't true, and this is why this.
One thing I want to point out.
That granular, but close.
One thing I want to point out is Baldridge earlier when we're talking about the end, when she's going back, when she stinks, and when she asks somebody for like a quarter. Question for you guys: do you distinctly remember there being a quarter in the book?
I didn't think there was a.
Like somebody gave him a quarter. Do you distinctly remember that or no?
That somebody gave her.
Yeah, to make the telephone call.
A phone. Yes.
You distinctly remember a quarter.
I don't remember. I don't remember a quarter.
Okay.
So like,
here's an interesting part. There is no mention of the quarter in this book. This is the 10th anniversary book. In the original edition, it said that someone gave her a quarter to make a telephone call. This
not a thing.
This was taken out because in Australia, you don't use quarters to make telephone calls. You don't use quarters to make telephone calls.
That is one of the critiques in the Anarchist Library critique.
So I was wondering if you had read, if you maybe had an earlier version of this book and it said, you know.
Yeah, I must have, because it didn't have the, this is a work of fiction. And it did not have that. Yeah. Yeah, and, you know, to add more evidence to this, you know, she... Marlo Morgan started her company. It was like one of those companies that sells like lotions or natural products, you know. And so essential oils.
Essential oils, exactly. And one thing that she had sold, her main thing was Spinifex, like healing oil or something like that you rub on your feet to make your feet feel better. And then she wrote this book, and it seemed to essentially her sales for this oil that was supposed to, you know, heal your foot, this lotion, skyrocketed once she had written this book, and so you could see it's almost it's almost a direct advertisement for her own company. Her company, I think, was later sold to someone else. It still sells other products. But I went to the company webpage. Yeah, I went to the company webpage. There's no mention of her name.
Oh, really?
On the webpage. Yeah, so I don't think that she's a part of it anymore. But yeah, you can see this is almost a direct advertisement for, you know, her essential oil that she was selling.
All right, so I compared this book to another book, one of my favorite books by Tom Brown Jr.
Oh, no.
Where he talks about his upbringing by Native Americans in the Jersey area in America. And his book actually got a lot of critiques like that. Like, these people don't exist. This never happened. This isn't real. But his stories of him growing up almost mirror like a lot of experiences I've had growing up. And to see people call out, this didn't happen, kind of that. I think that's why I pushed after I found out that this was like a fiction. I kind of still went with it, you know, as far as I did, but it was way too far. It was way off the rails at the end.
Yeah. Well,
was it better than our last book?
Oh yeah, Hands down.
I enjoyed it more than our last book.
Yeah.
I enjoyed reading it more than the last book.
So one other thing, and I kind of mentioned this earlier, a problem that I have with it is it's very much a white savior book. It's very much a Last Samurai. This white person has come in and is going to carry forth our culture. And there are a lot of books where that, and movies where that happens, where it's like, all right, here's like there's when she's discussing the Aboriginal people in the urban environment, she basically describes them as illiterate and without ambition. And I'm reading directly from the critique here on Anarchist Library, and it's like, and like describing them as having hooves for feet. It feels very like, if not, it's not like, I don't think it's meant to be blatantly racist,
Yeah.
but because of the way that it is written, it definitely comes off that way.
Did you feel that in the beginning when she was at the hotel?
See, at first I didn't, but that might be more of my own issues than anything, because that's not a frame of mind that I get into.
Well, she talks about how she gets in the car with this this dude, and like is it the bellhop or the hotel person gives him like a glare, like, how dare you do that kind of thing, like. Yeah. And I was like, well, when was this written? Like, is this still like?
Yeah.
So there was kind of that like very beginning undertone that I saw when I was first going through it.
And then another thing is that apparently a lot of the Aboriginal cultures are very segregated as along gender lines. So the fact that a lot of her interactions are with this tribe elder who is a man, and then they heal this other man. Like, according to a few of the critiques that I've read, that's very much frowned on. That's not something that happens. And maybe you could say that there's a I mean, if you're planning on killing off your people for this person, maybe they made an exception at the end of their
Do you
tribes.
think they would have done a little more trying to? Maybe they all died. Maybe there was multiple people before her that just died.
They
Maybe
try to
she's the only
bring
one that
in
made it.
multiple walkabouts. Interesting.
Yeah, and
That's
they're just like,
possible.
how about we let her see it? And they're like, no. And then she's like, this is the only person that's alive that's made it this far. So,
Oh, yeah, maybe. So
can we give it a rating? Are we allowed to do that?
Yeah.
Yeah, of
Yeah.
course.
What would you rate
So-
it, guy?
No, I want to hear Baldridge.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Let's get
here's the
Baldridge.
I think we need to look at it. So at first, right? At first, reading it as a factual story, it definitely falls flat, right?
Hey, Baldridge, before you give it a rating, can you answer Mr. McBroguy's question?
So according to, and I am not Australian, according to the critiques that I have read, it would be very unlikely for a male elder to meet with a female outsider. They would probably use a female elder or someone of higher standing, if there wasn't one, to do that. But so while I don't know, there's obviously multiple Aboriginal tribes, and I don't know any of them. So I am fully reading what people that I am trusting to know better have said.
Yeah, and to maybe say what you're saying in different words, Baldridge. Aboriginal tribes are segregated, man and woman, right? And so the men have certain jobs and the women have certain jobs, and they, in the book, we should have seen a distinct difference between the men and the women, and we didn't really see that. There really was no distinction. They pretty much just congregated as if there was no distinction.
Yeah.
Okay.
And once again, I'm basing this off of what I'm reading about the book. Yeah. So I think we have to look at the book as, was it an enjoyable work of fiction? You know, like, did we like the message of the book? Did we enjoy reading the book? And so like, if I was going to give it a rating out of, let's say, 5,
Let's do 10.
Let's do 10.
oh,
Yeah.
okay. So let me see. 5 times 2 is 10. 2 times 2, so 4 out of 10 is what I would give it. Because like,
As a work of fiction?
yeah, as a enjoyable, like, enjoyable, or like, whether I liked the message, whether I enjoyed reading it. It's like that very first little bit of the book, I was there. I'm like, okay, yeah, this is kind of a neat dissection of what's going on. This is kind of weird that she did this, and then that second section, that took like 6 points right off, 7 points right off of it. And then it gained 1 point back because it ended.
Okay. All right. So every book is at least a 1 out of 10 if you read it.
I mean, if you publish a book, I will give you a 1.
Okay, got it.
That you know what?
It gets published and it makes you actually read. So.
Yep. Yeah, you get 1 out of 10.
Let's see, Guy. You wanted to hear Baldridge's, so do you want to say yours, or do you want me to say mine? Okay.
So I would say, if I was to rate this book for the first few chapters, right, where I enjoyed that whole first part, it probably would have been, I'd say, an 8 out of 10. Like,
Same.
It was pretty good. It's pretty good. Going through the rest of the book, it's just slowly lost. So I mean, at the end of the book, I would have given it probably a 6 out of 10. It still was. I still enjoyed reading through certain parts. I'm probably not gonna read it again, unless it's to tear it apart, like, with more facts, like facts on this side, the book on this side, just to make myself feel better. But it was still okay. I mean, it was an okay book. It was. I've read way worse books. So
yes, yeah, same.
I mean, I definitely see what both of you guys are saying. I would say that there's a lot of things that I enjoyed out of this book, right? And I think that we all agree that the beginning of the book, we were pretty excited to continue reading it. Definitely a lull in the second half. There's still like plenty of themes that we are not going to have time to talk about in the discussion, such as the difference between cooperation and competition. Or a theme that I really wanted to get to that I don't know if we're going to have time to get to today is the difference between like betterment of self and progress of society. And for these, multiple themes in here that were covered, even if they're covered loosely, I think it promotes discussion, right? And it promotes me wanting to learn more about the Aboriginal people, and it promotes me, thinking about myself and how I could become a better person or a better leader or whatever.
Yep.
I want to give this book a rating of a 7 out of 10, but with a caveat that I can't give this a 6 out of 10 because I gave our previous book a 6 out of 10. And so I don't want to put them on equal footings. I need to have this book be better than our last book. And our last book, I wish I could actually decrease the rating, but those words have been said. So at this point, let's do a 6.5. Can I do a 6.5?
You can. This is your channel, Mr. Laser.
Okay, this is a 6.
I remember him giving the last book a 3 out of 10. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I gave it a 3.2 out of 15.
That's right.
So
this one can be a 3.3
out of 17. Does that math work? Okay, perfect.
No.
Quick math.
that would be lower.
Yeah, okay. This would be a 6.5. Somewhere between a 6.5 and a 7. I don't tend to, if I finish a book, like, I don't tend to rate it much like lower than that. Like, if I can't finish your book, then it wasn't worth the read in my mind.
Would you have finished it if this wasn't happening?
If the book club wasn't happening, no. To be honest with you,
Exactly.
no.
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
I still was able to, which is saying more than like. Essentially, if you guys want, make sure you recommend excellent books because I won't read them if they're unexcellent. That's not
Really?
true. That's not
I mean,
true
was
because I
gonna
read
say,
this
like,
book,
are you
right?
gonna come to the next one and be like, yeah, I didn't finish it because I hated it? Are you gonna do that? Like, you're not gonna do that.
I mean, if you come up here and you say, "Hey, our next book is like, Harry
A random
Potter
book.
and the Sorcerer's Stone or whatever, the first book in Harry Potter," I'm gonna be like, "Look, guys, I read this book when I was 12, and I'm not gonna read it again. So let's talk about everything I can remember."
Right.
But okay, so let's go somewhere between a 6 and a 6.5 out of 10.
Calling out saying Harry Potter's a bad book, guys. You heard him.
Well,
Won't read it.
not worth the reread. So
No, I don't really have much more to
Baby
say
Shark,
about it,
yes.
honestly. Yes.
You said you had one more point you wanted to talk to about the Rock. Do you want to go back to that?
is that me?
That was you.
I think we talked about that as in
Okay,
terms
alright.
of like leadership. I think I was on a
Oh,
soapbox
right.
for a little bit. Yeah.
Oh, I remember what I was going to say now.
Yeah.
So you were talking about looking at the book to like for self betterment, right? Like the only thing that I feel like I need to go out and do more is learn more about the Aboriginal people, just because of all the lies. And is that like a
Yeah.
positive thing or a negative thing? Like I don't feel like I need to go out and like do more in nature more than I already do.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel like I need to, be nicer to people because they're the scum of the earth. I mean, they're, more than I do. Sorry.
Are you gonna eat tomorrow, guy?
Am I gonna eat?
Yes. Are you gonna start fasting? That's the real question here.
No.
Yes.
Okay.
Did her mindset change at all? Like, I mean, it's still focused on food.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Right.
Like, I'm not gonna. It's not life changing.
The fact that we come in here and we recognize that there are lies and misconceptions in this book, and that we want to learn more about the truth, that is a positive thing. That's a positive thing.
At the very least, it was a reason to take a moment and flex the critical thinking muscle, right?
At the very least.
That is
Yeah.
the positive thing I will say.
Okay.
And it was finished and published.
There was going to make a movie about it. We haven't mentioned the movie. They were going to make a movie, and and elders from the Aboriginal tribe essentially went to Hollywood and said, "This book is freaking ridiculous. If you make a movie, we're gonna like they're not going to do anything." But essentially,
All right, they're going to write a stern letter.
they're going to write a stern letter. Yeah. So essentially, they said like. To the Hollywood producers that this is all fiction, and if you write a movie making it fact, essentially the truth is going to get out and it's going to look poorly on you. Is probably something like with the reasoning, and so yeah, the movie got canceled. But yeah, they're going to make a movie about this.
Huh.
So
Wow.
yeah,
What? Man, imagine watching nothing happen for 2 hours.
I mean, you've seen. There's a lot of books like that. I was
you've
gonna
seen a
list-
movie, right?
You've seen a movie.
I barely.
Okay. Is there anything else we want to say?
No, I'm just excited for the next one, and thanks for
Alright.
letting me be part of that.
Yeah, join your Discord. Here's the code. My other code expired, so there it is. It is not my turn to recommend the book. It's either Baldridge's turn or Guy's turn. Guy is on my Guy is
right
there, and Ridge is there. Okay. Yes, somewhere over there. You can actually see that it has a guy thing up there. So as long as you can read, you'll be okay. Perfect. So it's one of you two people's turn to recommend the book, or it's someone else's chat turn. But it's not my turn because I recommended Perks of Being a Wallflower, and now it's a disaster.
It wasn't a disaster.
The discussion wasn't a disaster, but the book was a little rough. Yeah.
Ooh,
Okay.
boy.
Have you read that book, Baldridge?
I have not. I have not.
Well, that's okay.
I feel fine.
Okay. So as far as like what's gonna happen next, I'm gonna get off here, and I'm going to do some things, like get a drink, and I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna play some Mario. So that's what I'm doing.
All right.
So hey, thank you
sounds
so much,
good.
guys, for your discussion. Take care, and we'll see you next time. Maybe in a month
Yeah,
or so.
thanks for having us.
All right,
Later.
bye everyone. Ah, don't look at that. Ah, it's still up there. How does it go away? Okay, I could do this. Hold up. Book club. Nope. Rap scene. Ah, okay, there we go. Okay, guys, I will be right back. I'm gonna end the stream and start it right back up. So Panic, you got that right, Poops. Nice hype train conductor badge. Yeah. All right, I'll be right back, guys. See ya.